G'day viewers, welcome back to Pop Will Fix It. This time, got some new parts for that engine out there. This time we're not going to be doing much tool work, we're going to be doing a lot of measuring and testing, which is probably the most important part of this whole process of replacing bearings. Stick around. So if this is your first time here, thanks for watching, and I hope I can teach you something, you like what you see, and consider subscribing. Now last time, pretty much all we did was pull the old bearings out, but we had to do a lot of work to get to those bearings. Now they're out, we can do everything. It seriously won't take that long to replace the actual bearings. But before we replace the bearings, we need to know A, what actually went wrong, B, are the new bearings actually going to work? Are they going to be the right size? Oh, you're probably thinking, what do I mean, right size? Well, here we go. That's the main bearings, and I'll talk about them later. These are the main bearings. Now it doesn't actually state on there. Yeah, it does. On there it says STD, means standard. Now, yeah, the bearings come in standard and oversizes. Why oversizes? Well, when the parts, the crankshaft and the conrods are manufactured, they're then ground to a certain size or tolerance. Now if you have an older engine, you rebuild it, more often than not the big end of the conrods will be bored out, and likewise the crank will be ground to make it round again, because they do, as they wear, they do become almost elliptical. Plus if there's any scoring on the crank, that needs to be ground out. Now we're only talking fractions of a millimetre here, like 30 thousandths, 15 thousandths of an inch, and that's where the oversized bearings come in. Depending on how much is taken off the conrod journal and the crank itself, depends on what size bearing you need. So if they take like 10 thousandths of an inch off the conrod journal and the crank, well, that's a 20 thousandths total oversize, basically meaning the bearing itself is thicker. Anyway, enough of that, let's crack this open. Now I don't have a micrometer, so the best I can do is digital verniers. That's unfortunately going to have to be close enough. I know that's not the ideal way to do it, but how many of you guys have micrometers? Okay, crack this open and make sure you actually open it. Don't just tear the bearing out of it, out of the packaging, because you can damage it quite easily. Alright, here we go. Now here's one of the old ones. Let's have a look at the size of that. I'll just pick a random spot. That's 1.13 millimeters. Now here's the other thing. If I hold that like that and then shine a torch behind it, how much light is coming through there? Trying to get that in the right light. There are gaps there, but I can't see them at the moment, but over this side there is a rather large gap, and I can even feel that. It's not flat, it's not straight, and it's only taking a measurement of the highest point. Put it that way, let's put the light behind it. That side looks okay. That's the crank side. rod journal side, again, there we go. I don't know whether that's picking up on camera, but there's, yeah, that's nowhere near flat. But what we say, that was 1.13, let's zero that. That's 1.11, there we go. 1, 2, 1, 4, so it's all bouncing around because it's not an even surface. As opposed to 1.5. That's a big difference. That's where our knock's coming from. And just to prove that point, I'm actually going to go and pull one of the other caps off, and we'll pull in one of the other bearings, one of the good bearings out, and we'll just make a measurement of that, see what comes out of it. Now, we'll just put these aside for a sec. Now this is kind of an aside to this task. It was suggested to me and I fully agreed. When I'm in there doing the big end bearings, I might as well do the mains while I'm in there. Now you don't have to remove the crankshaft to do the big end bearings. You can if you like, but you don't have to. You can what's called a roll out, which basically means you take the caps off, push the top bearing down a little bit, roll it out with the crankshaft, and then roll a new one back in. Then just replace the one in the cap, bolt it all back up. A couple of problems with that, we'll get to that later. But one thing I did notice, just to be careful if you do this, here's the main bearings. Now, again, standard. The issue with them is there's no thrust bearing anywhere to be seen. That's because they're sold separately. In most engines, there's at least one pair of bearings that have got a lip on the side, and that holds everything in place. That's the thrust bearing. As you can see, these have no lips on the side, they're just a half moon. There's your thrust bearings right there. Separate purchase. They do not come with the main bearings, so just be mindful of that if you ever go to do main bearings on, well, this engine, but I don't know how many others do it. Thrust bearings, they're a must. So what is a bearing? Most people consider like something like this, two metal rings with a bunch of balls in between. That's a bearing, that's a ball bearing. And yes, these bearings usually do have a dust cap, like on here. I've just removed one for demonstration purposes. And then you have things like this, which are a needle roller bearing, which makes up part of a thrust bearing. I'll get back to that in a minute. These don't look anything like that, so how is that a bearing? Well, literally a bearing is an inexpensive and replaceable part, or sacrificial part, to prevent wear on the major parts, so they bear the majority of the load. Hence, bearing. These do the same thing. They sit between the crankshaft and the conrod to prevent damage to either of those parts. This is the part that's going to wear out, not the crankshaft, not the conrods. They do wear, but nowhere near as much as these would. And then for, I think they were around $60, you can replace all of these and your engine's, well, not like new, but it's a lot better. So hang on, thrust bearings, thrust washers. Hang on, I thought bearings were supposed to take up rotational force. Well, yes they do, but here's the thing. A crankshaft not only rotates, it does have a slight amount of back and forward or side to side movement. In the case of a manual transmission car, there's even more, because every time you put your foot on the clutch or release the clutch, you're pushing on the end of the crankshaft. That's where thrust bearings come in. So we need these at one point, just one journal, usually in the middle of the engine. Sometimes they're the front or the back, but most times they're in the middle, and they take up and protect against that forward and back motion of the moving crankshaft. In the case of the bearing like this that I showed you before, this little needle roller bearing, it has two washers that come with it, and the bearing section sits between the two washers like this on a shaft. And usually the shaft has a shoulder, and there was a sideways or up and down force where there's load on that surface. That prevents your parts from wearing the ends out. Alright, well there's the damaged one. I'm just going to duck outside and grab another one out. Let's see how different they are. Alright, and here we have rod number 2 cap. Just giving it a wipe, it's still coated in oil. There's our bolts, which I'm still investigating. Now the cap still has the rod in it. Pop that out. Give that a wipe. That's a nice catch. Now see this one isn't great either. The back edge, the back side of it, I mean it feels flat, but it doesn't look flat. Yeah, it just doesn't look the best, but we'll measure it and see what it says. So that's 1.44. That's a lot closer to 1.15. And you can actually not even see, but you can also feel the difference in the thickness of the two. So that is absolutely definitely our problem. Again, why that happened on just that cylinder, I have no idea. That's still, and probably always will be, a mystery. Now, I'm just going to pop that back in there for now. No, I'm not going to put it back in like that. I am going to wipe it down. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to put it back in for now. It will be wiped down before it gets torqued back down. But speaking of torquing back down, not T-A-L-K, that's T-O-R-Q-U-E. Let's grab the torque wrench and head out to the car. Because next, I'm going to be playing with this. Okay, we're under the car. So, what is this? This is what's called plastic gauge, or flexi gauge. You can't even see that. There we go. Now what this does is, with the bearing in place, it measures the tolerance between the crankshaft and the cap. There you go. So we're just gonna give this bit of a clean, and then we're gonna pop a bearing in it. We're gonna tighten the cap down with a piece of that plastic gauge in place, and we're gonna see what this gauge says. When you're installing bearings, there'll be a little cutout in both the cap and the rod, and there's a little nick there on the edge of the bearing. Obviously those two have to line up. There's only one on each bearing, It's not easy upside down. There we go. That's in. Now remember, the dowels go together, so that has to flip over like that and go in. Let's see if this will pick up on camera. There it is. That's the plastic gauge. Now, I was lucky this just fell off, but don't pull it apart. You need to cut it, otherwise you're going to distort it, and that's going to give you a false reading. So now, we put that. Let's put it on the bearing itself, because it's not going to stick to the... and I've lost it. There it is. It's not going to stick to the crank, so I've just placed it in the cap. Now I've got to get that cap up there without dropping it. That way. It is in the cap. That's just finger tight. Now we'll go to torque, and the manual says 24.5 Newton meters, which is around about 18 foot-pound, plus 90 degrees. So take them both up evenly. I'm going to back it right off, so I can get them down to a common point. Okay, they're cinched down. Now let's go up to torque. 25. Oh. There we go. Okay, now I'm not going to go the extra 90 degrees because, well, as I said, I still don't know if these are torque to yield bolts yet. So I'm going to go about 45. Wind that up. There we go. Now, we take it back off. Okay, now, again, with the two bolts, one or two bolts, just use them to lever it off. There we go. Alright, back out in the daylight, and there we go. Turn around, see if we can do that a bit better. Let it go. There it is. You see that stain down there? That's what's left of the plastic gauge. Now that's exactly what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to flatten out. However, it's supposed to flatten out evenly, and as you can see, that's not even. It's wide on the edge, and then it narrows out towards the middle. that's telling me that the crank and all the rod journal are not even. They're not worn even. That's not a good thing. But now we're going to use the gauge here. Hold on a sec. Yeah, let's use this side because that's the side we want. Now, you see the numbers there, hopefully. There we go. And they're upside down, hang on. There. You see the numbers. 0.75, 0.5, 0.38, 0.038, sorry. And 0.6, or what's that? 6.5? 2.5. We want it somewhere in here. Now, if we get the bearing up beside it, the widest point there is about 0.38. 0.038. I keep doing that wrong. There we go. Whoops. You can see that's about 0.038, which is pretty much exactly where we need it. Anywhere between there and there is good. So, given the narrow point is a little smaller than 0.5, which is around 0.6. So that's exactly what we want. If it was even right across, that'd be even better, but this is not. So now what we're going to do is get the micrometer out and we're going to start measuring back under the car. Now, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to measure the rod journal because, well, the counterweights are in the way. So we're just going to measure the crank, just so I can give you guys an idea of what we've got to be looking at. As I said, unfortunately, I only have verniers. I don't have a micrometer, which would be better. But just across there, at that point, is 52.94 millimeters. Now, just for lols, I'm just going to move it across, measure it somewhere else on the journal. Same way, just a different point. $52.87. That was really tight. Okay, now what we're going to do, don't mind the helicopter flying overhead, we're going to rotate the crank and we're going to measure it the other way across here. And that is 52.82. So yeah, our crank's a little bit out of round, and I can't be cheating in any way, shape or form here because I can't even see it. That can't be right. This is why we use micrometers. Yeah, 52.84. So, yes, it's a bit rough. Probably hear that. That's because it's rough. and that is the bearing surface. So we might just have to, we could get away with it, but I would prefer to just give that like a like lap it even, just to get that a bit smoother, but we'll worry about that later. Now, as far as the main bearings go, they're underneath these things. These are the main bearing caps across here. They hold the crankshaft in. Now, here's the problem with these. These are 6-bolt mains. What's that mean? Well, there's 6 bolts hold this cap in. You can see 4 there. Where's the other 2? In from the side of the block. So on some of these, that's going to be fun because, well, there's a drive shaft mount there, right in line with that one. I think the others are okay. That one there. And there's... oh, awesome. Yeah, there's a drive shaft in the way. That one, yeah, got to remove this whole mount. Great. And that one's in there. The front, well, the compressor's in the way. There's one there, somewhere. Oh, yeah, underneath that mount. One there, and one in there. So, without pulling half the car apart, we might be able to get it, well, none of them. Oh, no, wait. 1 out of 4. So, we might do that, yet we might not. Because I don't really feel like pulling half the engine out. Because that mount has to go, that mount has to go. And that's a lot of work. Because, well, what holds the engine in then? And it's not like you can remove one mount, do whatever you need to do there, and then put it back in, and then remove the other mount, because they're both on the same cap. So, whether we do the main bearings is yet to be determined. Well, that's it for this episode. I hope someone got something out of that. I've still got a bit of cleaning to do, and then on the next episode, I'm going to put all this back together. So thanks for watching. I hope you learned something. If you like what you saw, hit that like button down below. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you know when the next one's coming. Leave a comment down below. If you have any questions, go ahead, ask. And I'll see you on the next one.